Hi, everyone. Welcome. Welcome to this side event called Strong Local Ecosystems to Govern Digital Technologies. My name is Isabel Lois. I work at the Federal Office of Communications in Switzerland, and I'm also the vice chair of the CSTD, and I'm happy to be moderating this great session today. So thank you all, great speakers, to being here, and thank you all for listening. We have a lot of ground to cover today in this session, so I'm very excited, and I won't be too long in my introductory remarks. I just wanted to quickly welcome all of you to this conversation and remind us that we have had 2 great decades of WSIS, of trying to implement these important principles, of trying to get connectivity everywhere, of trying to connect everyone to the internet, of trying to bring the digital issues into our local and regional arenas. And we see that we still have challenges, that there are still many things that remain not done, that we still have a lot of work in front of us. And I think even the negotiations I've been privy to in the past few months have shown that we still have disagreements, but we can also find consensus and agreement in many things that need to continue. And so, considering also that digital technologies have evolved, have become more and more prominent in our day-to-day lives, that we are more and more connected and interconnected, we also have new challenges that have arisen. I mean, disinformation, misinformation become more and more prominent. Deepfakes is an issue we all have to tackle in different ways. And digital literacy remains a strong point and a strong issue. I think we have all learned a lot in the past 20 years on how to navigate this digital world. And yet a lot remains to be learned by us and by many others, and to train the newer generations and how to deal with these pressing questions. For that, in Switzerland, and I think we would all agree here, governance is the key. Strong governance, but also then the implementation and bringing down those principles into local and regional levels. We can't just have discussions here at the UN. We need to bring it into action. And I think this is the point we're trying to make today with this session. So without going into too many details, I would like to give a few minutes to Jorge Cancio, who's the co-director of the Federal Office of the International Relations Team and the Federal Office of Communications in Switzerland, because Switzerland and the IGF Secretariat have planned this session. So I want to thank the IGF Secretariat for all of the great work in organizing this event. And Jorge, a few words for you before we start.
Thank you. Thank you, Isabel. So, hello, everyone. I'm Jorge Cancio from the Swiss government, and I have to be a little bit of Chengetai as well, but he's much taller than I am, but I'll try nevertheless. So this is really an event co-organized by the IGF Secretariat and ourselves, so very thankful to all the work from Chengetai, Anya, and the team. It's a very important topic and very dear to our way of doing things in Switzerland. I think this approach of bottom-up policymaking, bottom-up governance, subsidiarity, trying to deal with issues at the level where the people most affected have more possibilities to intervene, to shape the discussions, and also of this question of thinking and acting global, but also locally. This resonates very much with our traditional way of doing things, our traditional political system as well, which is designed to include all relevant stakeholders. And it's not just out of liberality or whatever, but because the political system really forces you to include those communities, because otherwise any relevant community can strike down any decision made by parliament, be it at the national, at the subnational, or at the local level. So there's a big incentive to really engage with all communities and to include them into the decision-making process. So nonetheless, WSIS and the approach in this area of digital cooperation, digital governance, starting in 2003, also required having close interaction with the community, with the national community. And back in those days, to prepare the WSIS summit in 2003 in Geneva, we established a platform tripartite in our federal French, which meant that we included government, private sector, civil society, academia, technical communities into the discussions to prepare the positions from the government. And this has been a channel that ever since has been growing and expanding as the topics were expanding as well, from the traditional technical governance of the internet over to all the digital issues we treat nowadays, from data governance to cybersecurity, and of course, artificial intelligence. So that's been a story that then, of course, we also piloted a Swiss IGF more than 10 years ago, and since 10 years now, on an annual basis, it's really a fixture of our national discussions on digital governance. We normally have people from all the sectors in a very vibrant process, a very vibrant community that includes some parliamentarians even, that show interest in these issues, and they also show interest in interacting with the community. Of course, people from the federal administration, but also from other levels of the administration, and of course from all stakeholder groups. And we time and again have very relevant discussions, because it's really a bottom-up issue identifying process. We mapped the way that the Swiss IGF does things against the Sao Paulo multi-stakeholder guidelines to see where do we really match up with those guidelines for multi-stakeholder policy making, decision making. We adopted at Net Mundial +10 in Sao Paulo in early 2024. And we have this, of course, the Swiss IGF is more of an annual event, but the platform tripartite is a channel we use to, for instance, discuss the regulation of platforms. So the regulation of big social media platforms, or the regulation of AI in Switzerland. So we really try to use it for relevant topics. So I think this is just an example on how NRIs, the Swiss IGF, the platform tripartite, they really are very useful. They dynamize the discussions. They bring insights to the more political, traditional channels, and they help us in making better discussions. And it is a part of the connective tissue of what we call the Internet governance ecosystem, an expression that is in the outcome document, which we hope will be adopted by the end of this week at the latest. And let me finalize with expressing my hope that today's discussion brings a lot of insights and a lot of good ideas we may then implement at our national, local, regional levels. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Jorge, for these remarks. And let me quickly introduce the great panel we have here today. So we have here to my left, Mr. Jarno Syrjele, and I apologize if I'm pronouncing your last name. Okay, great. And Finnish Undersecretary of State for International Trade. We have Mr. Josef Gordon-Levitt, actor, producer, founder of Hydrotect and IGF advocate, Mrs. Carol Roach, IGF Multi-Stakeholder Advisory Group Chair, and Undersecretary at the Ministry of Economic Affairs, the Government of the Bahamas. We have Lise Fur, IGF Leadership Panel member and Chief Executive Officer at Géant. We have Henriette Esterhusen, former Executive Director of the Association for Progressive Communications, Jennifer Chung, Vice President Policy for .Asia, and Shafiq Shaya, member of the Lebanese delegation at WSIS+20 Review. So all great speakers, and I am very excited to hear all of your thoughts. So maybe we can jump right into the conversation. Joseph, I will start with you with my first question, if that's all right. So considering the rapid adoption of different emerging technologies, such as AI, there's a lot of risks for security, safety, human rights that are arising. In your view, how can we build clean, safe, and accountable algorithmic models that protect human rights, such as privacy, freedom of expression, and also avoid algorithmic suppression, and at the same time, hopefully, enable responsible innovation?
Do I wait? There we go. Thank you. Thanks, everybody, for having me here. I'm really excited to be here, and thank you for all the work that you're doing. This is a topic that I've been paying close attention to for years, and really happy to get to talk to you about it. Your question, how to build these models in a safe way, to me, there are two things that come to mind, and they're not necessarily things that say to the tech companies building these models, you must do this or you must do that necessarily. To me, a lot of it has to do with business incentives, because the companies building these models are businesses. They have to make money. There's two things that the companies do, though, that, frankly, I'll be really honest, do help them make a lot of money. But I think if they stopped doing these two things, they could still make lots of money and harm the world a lot less. One of the things is the algorithms driving the biggest AI models today are the same algorithms that drive the biggest social media companies today. It's a pretty simple algorithm that just optimizes for user engagement. It just wants the user of the AI or the social media platform to stay and keep going, to take as much time as possible. And the reason, of course, is because they make money with advertisements. And I think it's not entirely obvious yet to everybody how similar this business model is between social media companies and AI companies. But make no mistake, it's very much the same. It's the same business model. It's the same, they call it engagement optimization. And a lot of the outcomes that we're worried about, I'm a dad. People are talking about how a lot of kids are falling in love with their AI companions, their chatbots. The young man here in the United States who recently committed suicide and the family is suing one of the big tech companies, Adam Rain was his name. He started using the bot for homework. His intention was not to develop a deep relationship with a chatbot. He was just using it for homework. But over the course of a number of months, and you can read the transcripts now, he became more and more involved until eventually the thing was instructing him how to commit suicide, writing his suicide note, telling him that he shouldn't be sharing his feelings with his parents. And why? It wasn't, of course, because anybody at the AI company wants the chatbot to be doing this. But it's the emergent result of an engagement optimization algorithm. It's the same reason why on YouTube or any of the other user-generated content platforms that are driven by machine learning algorithms in their recommendation feeds, why they recommend conspiracy theories, or they recommend extremist content, or they recommend the kind of things that we've seen cause all of these damaging side effects. It's the same, because they're making money the same way. So that's one thing I would really recommend, is that as these models are deployed on, like you said, a national, a subnational, a local level, could we not say, yes, we want this technology, we want our people to be able to use this technology, but not with these engagement optimization algorithms? Let's not have that. The companies could still make money, maybe a little bit less. So that's one thing I would recommend. The other, if I can stop there, or you tell me about time. Okay, one more idea. One more thing that's important to me has to do with the data that's used to train these models. Right now, AI companies, they vacuum up a great deal of content and personal data about people. And they use that data to train their models and make lots of money. But they oftentimes don't get permission and don't offer compensation for all the content and data that they're using that gives their products so much value. Now, honestly, this strikes very close to home for me because as someone who is a creator for a living, this is certainly a threat to my livelihood as well as to all content creators, whether they work in Hollywood or they make YouTube videos or podcasts or newsletters, or they're journalists or they're academics. But this even goes beyond content creation. This same basic principle, I think, applies in economies throughout the world and throughout the whole world's economy. This basic idea that if a human being creates something, does some work, or even just generates some data, that human being should deserve compensation if that data is used to make money. This is going to be deeply important. It's going to be deeply important throughout the world, not just for content creators. And I've spoken to folks in this community who say, yes, they're working in developing countries and are worried that these companies are harvesting data about even some of the most vulnerable people in the world and using that data to make money without offering any of the economic upside to the people who are producing that data. So this is another principle that I think is deeply important. And again, it's another way that, yes, the tech companies will make more money if they don't have to pay the people for their content and data. But I don't see why we couldn't say, yes, we want the tech, and we're even open to potentially you using our data to build your tech. But if you're going to use that data and you're going to make money with it, some of that economic upside should come to the people who are making that data. So those are two of the principles that I see as I've been paying attention to this industry, and again, seem to me to apply on. I loved the way you put it. I hadn't heard that before. The national, the subnational, and the local level. So thank you for listening.
Thank you so much, and I fully agree with the 2 points you made. I think it's important to consider having the different AI companies or the different facilities and digital tools that we use are great, but maybe they don't need to expand at all costs. That's a bit how I would summarize your point. I hope that's all right. Lisa, if I could go to you next. You have been on the leadership panel for the past few years, and you've done a great job there. Maybe you can share a bit on the thoughts that the leadership panel has identified in several local actions that is needed, where investment is needed to strengthen inclusive digital governance. Could you share a bit about that?
Yes, and thank you for inviting me. I'm very flattered to be named an expert. But exactly that, to highlight how discussions can become much more tangible and meaningful is important when we discuss internet and digital governance. And that has been one of our main targets from the beginning as the leadership panel. Part of their recommendation in the report where we have done for the Secretary General is that we called for measurable, concrete deliverables on meaningful internet access, because the meaningful is also important, and especially for the global south here. we feel that if we can regularly report on deliverables, that would be a good demonstration on how we as IGF are strengthening the global inclusion, and also what influence IGF has as such. But that cannot be done only in the global IGF. It needs to be done, and it needs to be leveraged through the national and regional networks. I think you mentioned it, Joe, that it needs to be also, we have the local, we have the regional, we have the global. We have all these layers, and if you don't reach the local layer, it's not actually making the impact you want. Because we can have a lot of discussions on a global level, but it needs to be out there in the villages, in the cities, and in the homes, that we have an impact. And I think, how can we, as IGF, translate that? That we have the wonderful vehicle of the national and regional IGFs. But I think we also need to continue the theme of making outputs more concrete by involving and linked to broader UN processes. And I think IGF is a natural platform for implementing and reviewing, for example, the Global Digital Compact that has been made and signed by multiple countries. And we need to monitor that process, and then we can look at how we harness the digital technology, but also what is more viable is that we ensure that it's the benefit for all and closing the digital divides. So we created also the framework as a leadership panel, the Internet We Want. It's a framework trying to embrace all the things we find is important around digital. It's not only the Internet. And I hope those are the guidelines that can help us also for the future. But again, if we look at local investments, that's what we also discuss about. If I bring on my Jean hat, what we have done, we have reached out to different parts of the world. And I think whenever you do that, it is important you make solutions that are sustainable, even after the project ends. So you can have an impact, but if you're not being in a partnership where you build that kind of capacity building, and we have done, as Jean helped building the Ella Link cable system that connecting Europe and South America and making it much quicker by 2/3. That is a project that's now completely led by our colleagues in Red Clara in South America, and they are driving this forward to the next generation. So whenever you do something, you can help with best practices, with capacity building, but what you need to do is doing it in a way so the project lives on its own. So on underlining all of this we're talking about is, of course, that we need to make sure every decision, every discussion is informed by, and of course also made via multi-stakeholder engagement, but also that we include reliable data sources. That's one of the parts we are talking about in our report. There are a lot of data out there, so let's not reinvent the wheel here. But the UN DESA e-government survey, you have the UNESCO Rome X indicators. We could measure those also and bring them into the IGF processes. And by having the numbers, by having the data put in a multi-stakeholder environment, we can make sure that we have both local voices are heard and taken seriously, and we have a solid evidence base that are crucial factors for high quality policy making, but also impact. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And I think you raised a few good points. I think the concrete outcomes is something that we are often looking for, and that is often the most complicated point to agree on. because we have many principles and many ideas, but then in the implementation, it gets quite tricky. And this is exactly where the IGF can really shine. It's the place where we have all of great conversation, issue spotting, best practice sharing. It's truly inspiring. So I think you're very much hitting the issue right on the nail there. Without further ado, we will continue. Jarno Cyrille, now that I am trying to pronounce your name correctly, how would you say that developed nations, those who have maybe more resources, can help in closing the digital divides at all of the different levels, and especially for developing countries? Maybe you can share some insights there.
Thank you, and thanks for inviting me here. It's great to be here, and in particular, I would like to thank the government of Switzerland and the IGF Secretariat for convening this important discussion. So I try to bring some Finnish perspective into this discussion. So despite our continued efforts, the digital divide remains unresolved, as we know. In fact, the rapid development of new technologies has even widened the gap between developing and developed states. The fast pace of technological development will only intensify the urgency of finding effective solutions to this challenge. And for Finland, so technology is a central issue in our foreign and security policy, especially today. We place a strong emphasis on digital development in our international engagements, with particular attention to private sector solutions and investments. Our commitment there is quite clear. So to work globally for digital development that is fair, inclusive, and sustainable while upholding human rights and advancing gender equality. Another pertinent challenge in this regard is the gender digital divide, which remains a major obstacle for inclusive digital development. As a co-leader of the UN's Generation Equality Action Coalition on Technology and Innovation for Gender Equality, we emphasize the pivotal role of digital technologies. For the opportunities of technology to be delivered, women and girls must have equal, safe, and quality access to digital technologies, as well as the necessary digital skills. Globally, we are far from reaching the target of universal connectivity as set out by the Agenda 2030. Despite good initiatives and concrete actions, a lot remains to be done in order to tackle this challenge. If you allow, here are a few examples on how to address this challenge. I think the first point is that we must invest in secure and resilient digital infrastructure, from cables and networks to data centers and public digital infrastructure, so that communities have reliable access to connectivity. Without this foundation, the potential of digitalization remains locked away. Second, it is essential to support capacity building and skills development. Affordable connectivity alone is not enough. Communities need the competencies to use digital tools meaningfully and safely. This includes digital literacy, cybersecurity awareness, and the ability to participate in digital economies. Thirdly, developed nations should work in partnership with local actors and the private sector to mobilize investment and innovation. Public resources can catalyze private capital, ensuring that solutions are sustainable and tailored to local needs, especially in rural and underserved areas. Fourth, I think we must ensure that all efforts are grounded in human rights, democratic values, and gender equality. Closing the digital divide is not only about access, it's about enabling inclusive participation. Addressing this gender digital divide, for example, is critical to ensuring that women and girls can fully benefit from digital opportunities. Finally, cooperation must be multilateral and multi-stakeholder. Developed nations should work hand in hand with governments, civil society, and international organizations to ensure that digital development is fair, inclusive, and sustainable. Lastly, I would like to underline our long-standing support to the IGF, which has also enhanced the access to the internet, thus promoting our common objectives in this regard. In this context, I would like to encourage also other partners to step up their support to the IGF and the multi-stakeholder model of internet governance, which is, in essence, contributes to closing the digital divide. Thanks.
Thank you so much. And I fully agree that stepping up and supporting the IGF is one of the ways that we can try to close the digital divides or work on closing them, which is, I think, one of the main points that has come out also from the outcome documents on WSIS. I really like the different points that you made, and I think one of the underlining issues that I see is the need for multi-stakeholder collaboration on all of these points. If we are talking about capacity building or infrastructure, I mean, going back to what Lisa mentioned earlier, we need more than just governments participating here, and this will be I'm hoping, the solution here. So I can only second the different points that you made and the importance of working together. Henriette, I can go to you now. Let's talk a bit about human rights online. They are, as we know, at risk in different ways all around the world. Where do you see the greatest dangers globally? Let's go to a darker place maybe for a second. And what actions maybe could you see are most urgently needed to try to address these dangers?
And thanks very much, Isabel, and thanks to everyone who helped bring this together. You know, I think that it's true that human rights online are violated on a daily basis, but so are human rights offline. And I think we tend to forget that. I and my organization were personally directly involved in achieving the 2012 Human Rights Council resolution that rights that apply offline apply online. The reason we worked so hard to achieve that was because we believed, and we still try to believe, that online spaces and tools and online activism and advocacy can help achieve human rights and human rights respecting cultures in the physical world. But in many ways, the debate has kind of lost that connection. We become very preoccupied with the online spaces. We forget that a journalist who expresses him or herself freely online could end up in an offline prison, probably one without any internet access as well. And I think this is the challenge for this community. I think we tend to think of ourselves as an alternative reality rather than a reality that is so intertwined with political, social, and economic lives. And I think that links to another challenge, I think, is that we, especially those of us that understand human rights frameworks, we focus still primarily on civil and political rights. We forget about the fact that the human rights instruments that we care so much about are indivisible and interconnected. Look at the debate about inclusion of the right to development in the WSIS outcome document. That was a painful point of negotiation. What is so frightening to global North countries about the right to development when global South countries try and demand it? We forget that social and economic rights are an essential part of the rights framework, the right to fair work, so the right to organize, which is a civil political right and an economic and social right. And I think that is forgetting this connection between offline and online realities, between the different types of rights frameworks, and ultimately, whether it's a framework or not, what it means in people's daily lives. I think then also linked to this, and it's linked to how we think about social and economic rights and this offline reality. I still think we're not talking enough about the billions of people that are not connected and that are not meaningfully connected. Even in the WSIS document, we have a paragraph that talks about the fantastic progress on how many people are connected to the internet. And I know I'm a pain and I say this all the time, but do you know how the official ITU statistics for internet penetration, how that is calculated? It's calculated on the basis of an individual accessing the internet from any device at work or at home once in a 3-month period. So that means, Joseph, I don't know how many times you connect to the internet a day, but you have the same statistical relevance as a farmer, in rural South Africa where I come from, who connects once in 3 months, and maybe then the bandwidth is so poor that they don't get very far with it. But in any case, I think we're still not taking that reality seriously enough. But then, if I look at the frameworks, I think we do have the rights frameworks, which ultimately the international human rights system is based on the principle that states are duty bearers, individuals are rights holders, and we can hold states accountable for complying to rights. It's an imperfect framework. There are many authoritarian states who don't comply with it, but they understand it. And those of us that are rights defenders understand it. And we can have a coherent debate with them, even if we disagree. We can expose them at home, or if there's no freedom of expression at home, in the international media. But what happens when the violators of rights are companies? And what happens when there are very big, powerful companies, and where the governments and the countries where those companies have their home base are not willing to hold them accountable for practices which you've outlined already, which do violate human rights, which can encourage and incentivize hateful speech that can lead to deaths in the physical world? Look at Sri Lanka a few years ago. Look at so many other cases. And I think ultimately we have the guiding principles on business and human rights. They're not particularly strong. And I think this is really, for me, the big question. But aside from this difficulty in holding these companies accountable for violating rights, it's also the difficulty in how erratic they are. You'll have them as rights champions 1 year, and then a few years later, political configurations of power and interest have shifted, and then they're no longer very serious rights advocates. So how do we negotiate that? But I think perhaps more importantly than that is that the business models that have evolved and that now shape the internet has actually, I think, destroyed in many respects the internet that we started off, the internet as a global public resource as it was identified in the original WSIS documents. Those of us, I'm looking at Marcus, there are a few of us here who were around in 2003. I see Bill Drake as well. We really imagined that the internet was going to give us that tool to create a more equal, interconnected, peaceful world. I mean, we were obviously very naive, but I think that's the question. How do we get it back? And is the multi-stakeholder process, as we've evolved it, is the way in which we approach the IGF, in which we approach the WSIS and its outcome documents, is it actually helping us to meet this challenge or not? And that's the question I would like you to answer, the room.
Thank you so much, Henriette. I fully agree, and I thought I was the one who was supposed to ask the questions, but great reminder. No, I really want to echo the point you made, and I want to say it in a very sort of informal way of going out and touching grass, of reminding ourselves that what we're doing online also applies in the physical world. I think that's a very fresh reminder and very important. This is not just a conversation that we have to have. This is also something that impacts our realities. And I think this is something that you very well underlined and that I want to echo for the rest of the conversation. Carol, I'm going to turn to you now. So what mechanism would you see to build strong local digital ecosystems to ensure as much as possible an inclusive digital governance? Please share your thoughts.
Well, I'm sorry, I'm going to start with questions. So let's start by asking, what would a strong local digital ecosystem look like? It would include representation of all stakeholders on equal footing. It would include representation of all users, no matter gender or socioeconomic standing or grouping. It would have access to resources, financial, experts, human capacity. It would have strong partnerships and meaningful collaborations. To know what mechanisms are needed, we need to understand the environment of the ecosystem. And I think Henriette touched on this as well as Lise. What does the digital landscape look like? You know, what are the gender inequalities? And we've all heard the numbers, 78% women worldwide, women and girls online, compared to 80 plus for men and boys. Okay, technology gone wrong. So how strong is the use of digital technologies in the transformation of economies, education, health, industry, the environment? Are we speaking to marginalized countries or groups like Global South, or even narrower still, countries, SIDS? Are we talking about having the internet as a pawn or a tool? What is the political, economic, and social environment? Are policies that are meant to protect doing more harm than good? Sometimes policies become garden walls and not guardrails. Sometimes sovereignty and national security, protection of culture and norms lead to fragmentation. What is the financial landscape? What's the market share of these countries or the areas or the local communities that we're speaking to? What's the cost of living? What's the cost of doing business? What are the geographic and capacity challenges? My country, the Bahamas, we boast and we have a little ditty that says 700 islands in the sun, lots of sea and lots of fun. But that comes with infrastructure challenges. You know, we are far scattered islands. So it's a challenge to get everybody connected and stay connected. It's also difficult with regards to capacity building. Are there climate-related vulnerabilities? Again, for the Bahamas, there are. So I have asked a lot of questions. What are the answers? Like Henriette, hopefully we'll get some answers from you. But answers can only come by engaging at the local level. I believe, and I borrow from the DC on SIDS, Dynamic Coalition on SIDS, building digital resilience, digital innovation for economic diversity, digital inclusion for prosperity, digital future for governance and policy, and digital solutions for environmental stability require greater collaboration and support of the NRIs, or the national regional IGFs. The NRIs are on the ground. They are able to find the answer to these questions so the right mechanisms for the right results can be put in place. The Global IGF is the conduit or collaboration platform for the bottom-up design, development, implementation, and monitoring of mechanisms. I would like to emphasize the following as I end. The need for sustained investment for the IGF and its intersessional work, and emphasis on a structured, long-term institutional strengthening framework within countries. We need the right people and the right resources, and we need it consistently. A focus on youth, especially in STEM. We need digital literacy, yes, but beyond this, we need developers of technology, not just users, especially in the Global South. Capacity building for decision makers and leaders, the parliamentarians, the judiciary, educators, academia, civil society. And lastly, the storytelling of all that is digital, and as we often say, the good, the bad, and the ugly, so as to socialize the true narrative. It's the only way to ensure that technology, its strengths, weaknesses, and opportunities and threats remain a priority agenda item in countries, regions, and globally. While telling the story is important, I take from Joe yesterday, a means of broad listening is as critical for feedback and follow-up or follow-through. Thank you for having me, and thank you for listening. I look forward to discussions.
Thank you so much. I really liked the image that you painted on what it could mean if we do it right, and sort of bringing inclusion with a capital I into it, and the reminder of anything we're doing being locally relevant, because we all have different challenges, and this is really the point also with this session, to bring it back to what we're doing at the regional, local level, where we have different issues and different questions that come up. So thank you so much for sharing those points and asking good questions. I'm hoping that everybody here in the audience is prepared with their answers. But Jen, if I can move to you, going back a bit to tech platforms, major tech platforms, how can they work with local communities to ensure safe and inclusive online environments? Please share your thoughts.
Technological difficulties here as well. So I do love this question very much, but also I'm answering again with the point of view of the national, regional, sub-regional, and youth initiatives. .Asia is a registry operator. We are not a tech platform, but we do serve as a secretariat for the Asia Pacific Regional IGF. And I guess, again, we're preaching to the choir a little bit, but I do see some new faces in this room that, perhaps don't know so much what the regionals do, what the nationals do, what the youth initiatives do as well. I guess the short answer is, how do we get the tech platforms to work with local communities is actually very simple. IGF. NRIs, having tech platforms willing to come to the table to discuss through all these issues with advocates, with privacy advocates, with child-led organizations, with child rights advocates as well, to work through these issues in an environment that is not pushing you to do anything specific, but can actually talk through these very difficult issues, economic issues, it could be political issues, all of this in a way that would allow you to shape policy, to shape solutions that actually work. And we're actually quite fortunate in APAC that we actually have Meta, we have Line, willing to send in workshop proposals, be part of these workshop proposals that stakeholders propose, come to the table and have some solutions. This year we had a hybrid and mostly virtual Asia Pacific Regional IGF. Our host country was Nepal, but when we had the Nepal meeting, it was during a time that was quite difficult for the host country. But internet is our savior. It is actually part of the technology that allows us to talk about this. So all of this was moved online quite easily, quite quickly, and allows us to go through a lot of very difficult issues. I think Meta actually, in this particular year, they brought together an example about what they were doing specifically with a tool called stopncii.org. Basically, this tool is about how to stop revenge porn online. So that is something that has been identified by many, of course, that this is a problem. So how is industry, how is tech platforms actually trying to address this? They look at a lot of data. They look at how, when they roll out these tools, if it actually addresses the problems that is seen, the problems, and addressing it at the root as well. So it is actually quite interesting for them to bring this to the table and have a really rich discussion. One thing also for APR-IGF, we have an innovation, and I call it innovation, but now it's almost 10 years, more than 10 years. So maybe it's not an innovation anymore. Maybe it's a part of a key highlight or a key outcome that really helps the regional IGF. It's our synthesis document, and in here, we kind of encapsulate and highlight all the important things, kind of a snapshot, if you will, of the global and issues, but also in the Asia-Pacific lens, what we discuss in any particular year. So of course, Asia-Pacific is very diverse. We have so many different economies, we have so many different communities, we have so many different languages, but how do we kind of cut across that when we look into how to get the local action? So I think another good point that we had last year when we had our Taipei meeting is there's a very big, I guess, social media or online platform called Line, and they were actually very, very interested to know a little bit more about what internet governance is. They're quite big in the home economies that they operate in, But they really didn't know what is this internet governance discussion? What is it at the global level? It's a UN thing. How do we actually participate more, I guess, locally in their markets? And they found after they came to the Taipei meeting that it's actually really beneficial for them to actually get their developers, those who actually code all of their products, to understand how users use them, understand the impacts of what actually happens on the ground. Another thing I'd like to highlight, especially for Asia Pacific, is we have a very vibrant youth community. There are actually more youth initiatives in APAC that sprung up in the recent years than there are, I think, for the nationals. I think there is 18 APAC national NRIs right now, and 14 youth initiatives. Many of them have sprung up either during the pandemic or since the pandemic. So you see this proliferation of interest of youth. Those are the consumers. They are digital natives. They want to know if they can be part of the conversation, not even just part of the conversation, but also co-creators of these rules, of these regulations, of things that actually impact them the most. And I think for APAC youth here, I guess we're talking now WSIS+20 review, they've also been extremely active in looking at this. And in fact, I think they have a declaration of youth participation, which they put out online as well after all these consultations. I can go on at length about all of this, but I think I'll stop here for now. Thank you.
Thank you, Jen. And thank you also for bringing, I think, the youth perspective. We haven't talked about it so much today so far, but I think it's a really important point to consider, especially when we want to co-create regulations or policies, to really think about those who are affected and will be affected for the longest time about that. And I think it's very fitting that the solution to the problem that we are talking about, that you brought, is the IGF, is having a space where we can have these conversations. This session also being hosted with IGF Secretariat, I think this is very fitting. And I fully agree. Having a non-committed space where we can have conversation, open discussion and dialogue is extremely important. We have still our last speaker, and then I will open the floor for any questions or remarks. Shafiq, I turn to you. With growing concerns about internet fragmentation, and we're bringing in a new topic here almost, how can countries strengthen local and national digital policy frameworks while preserving openness, interoperability, and of course the global nature of the internet? Please, over to you.
Okay. Thank you, Isabel. Thank you for having me today. It gives me a great pleasure to be with you here in this side event. On behalf of the Lebanese delegation to the WSIS+20. And this question really go to the heart of WSIS. As reflected in the WSIS+20 outcome document currently under consideration, and as Jorge said, we hope that it will be adopted tomorrow, member states reaffirm that the internet must remain open, global, interoperable, secure, and we must act collectively to prevent all forms of fragmentation. Lebanon strongly supports this principle and considers it crucial to preserving the internet as a shared global resource. In this context, I will highlight 3 key points. First point is that, once again, I couldn't agree more with Jennifer, national digital policies must reinforce than fragment the global internet architecture. And the second one is multi-stakeholder model remains the strongest safeguard against internet fragmentation. And the third point, and here I couldn't agree then with Jennifer, that strong and inclusive local ecosystems are essential to effective one global internet. Let me explain. For the first point, countries rightly seek to strengthen their national digital frameworks to address cybersecurity, development, economic growth, and public interest objectives. However, these efforts must remain consistent with the foundation reaffirmed through the WSIS process. Fragmentation, whether regulatory, institutional, infrastructural, risks undermining the very benefits that digital transformation promises. for developing countries and crisis-affected countries. Fragmented approaches increase costs, weaken resilience, and restrict innovation. For the second point, as multi-stakeholder model remain the strongest safeguard against fragmentation. So once again, the support of or for the multi-stakeholder model as articulated through the WSIS process and reaffirmed in the WSIS+20 review is vital to avoid internet fragmentation. This model enables governments to exercise their responsibilities while benefiting from the operational expertise of the technical community, the innovative capacity of the private sector, the societal perspective of civil society, and the research and analytical contribution from academia. The last point, but not the least, that strong and inclusive local ecosystems are essential. I believe this side event rightly recognizes that global governance is only as strong as its local foundations. National and regional platforms play a crucial role in translating the global principles into national strategies and vice versa, and bringing local realities to the global discussions. And here, Lebanon experience clearly demonstrates this. Through the Lebanon IGF, our national initiative has evolved into a trusted national platform. It brings government bodies, parliamentarians, private sector, civil society, academia, and technical community, and offers a dialogue on the internet and digital policies and allow Lebanon to participate more actively in regional and global processes, including WSIS and IGF ecosystem. So we remain firmly committed to advancing digital transformation as a driver for development and economic growth. But at the same time, we are equally committed to the global principle that safeguards an internet that is inclusive, resilient, and unfragmented. So to conclude, as the WSIS+20 process approaches to its conclusion, we need, as stakeholders, to renew our commitment to uphold WSIS principles to ensure that our shared digital future expands opportunity, strengthens trust, and delivers sustainable development for all. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Shafiq, for your great points. And I fully agree with what you were underlining, that doing something globally is not enough. We need to translate it into the local and regional and subnational aspects. I think that's really important, and reminding us the importance of internet and of trying to avoid fragmentation at all costs and at all levels. Maybe I will open up now for the room. We don't have that much time, but if there are any comments or questions, please feel free to press the button in front of you. I see a question over there. Please, sir, you can start.
Good afternoon, all. My name is Dr. Maktar Segaf from UN Economic Commission for Africa. We are playing in Africa an important role on IGF. As you know, Africa has around, I think, 36, 37 NRI. We started this discussion since 2003. Marcus was there. And the idea, it was IGF. It is a UN-led, multi-stakeholder driven process. But when you look at the multi-stakeholder, means government, private sector, academia, tech community, youth. There is two missing in general in IGF. Government are not present in several IGF. Private sector start to come. All the discussion we have, online access, internet fragmentation, human rights, digital divide, we need government. Without government, we can't success. The issue is we have to look at, again, the mandate of IGF. Yeah. how we can make IGF more sustainable, how we make IGF institutional. We have to provide adequate resources to the IGF Secretariat. And also at the UN level, we need to look at, when I talk about adequate resources, I talk several times, it's not just to provide the XB budget, extra budget. We need to look at the regular RB budget at UN, how we consider IGF as entity of UN, to make sure IGF will play an important role in the stakeholder space. Given we have the WSIS+20, we have also the GDC to implement. I think it's very important to come back to the mandate of IGF during the WSIS+20 and to take this opportunity, as everybody agreed IGF is playing an important role in the digital ecosystem, such in Africa. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I see another question right here. Please press on your mic.
We talked about development, equity, and on the other side about security, danger and security, and how to cope with the security. And I'm, of course, concerned by this topic because I come from the children's rights, working for the Austrian government, and then I decided to develop a project concerning the population which is the most sensitive to cyberbullying, to all kinds of disorders that we just heard. When you mentioned this case of this teenager, is it a teenager? Yes. Of course, one of the answer is the financial answer, as you mentioned, but also we have to work on how can we protect them? How can we prevent to be in this kind of situation? Of course, we can always argue that these companies has to work better to make a different kind of security, of course. But we have also to train our children, our teenagers, as we did in the physical world. In the physical world, when a teenager was physically attacked, we told him, okay, let's go to some karate courses or to do something self-defense to learn how to protect yourself. Nowadays, we don't know how to protect them. We don't really do, and we don't really work on it. I developed a project about the neurodiverse children because they are the more concerned of this topic, because they are the most under the screen for different reasons. And as you said, this teenager wanted to make a friend. That has a big meaning. It means that he was maybe feeling lonely, and nobody had seen that he was in such a state. And I can speak a bit longer about that, but it's not, I don't have the time. But we have to be very concerned on how can we prevent, how can we work better on that. And I have part of a solution on this topic. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much for both underlining the question and the solution. Yes, please. Please try to be quick. We don't have that much time left, but please go ahead.
Thank you. My name is Sorin, and my question is regarding fragmentation of processes. As you see, we have WSIS Forum, we have IGF, now we have Global Digital Compact, I think, Forum also coming, AI panel. I think coming from the Global South or the global majority, one of the issues we have is, number one, we don't have the resources and the expertise to be in all these kind of processes. And considering that the stakeholders are more or less the same, how do we ensure coherence between these processes? And instead of just talking about IGF in isolated process, because IGF is also interlinked to all other processes. I think that will make our way of doing things effective or better managed, especially for the Global South one. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Serene, and lovely seeing you again. I think I will now maybe close the floor and turn to the panel back. And if you allow me, maybe I can ask for your concluding remarks at the same time. So I will go in order. Please try, if you can and want to answer these or comment on these 3 points. I will maybe share one point on the IGF. I think the outcome document, hopefully consensual documents, of course, will hopefully share a bit more on how the IGF can move forward. And I think in the past 20 years, the IGF has evolved quite a lot on what it's doing. So I'm hoping that we will be able to answer at least that front. And of course, also on the engagement from the different levels. But I'm going to let the experts answer, and I will go in the contrary order than from you spoke earlier. So, Shafiq, we will start with you, if you allow me. Please go ahead.
Thank you, Isabel. I will try to answer Serena's question. Tomorrow at 1:15 p.m. in this room, we'll discuss your issue, how to connect the dots between WSIS, IGF, and GDC. And we have the pleasure to have Jorge with us. So tomorrow afternoon, you can get your answer. Second.
Sleep well.
Yeah, sleep well, yes. Think well today. Second, as we're looking for 2026, I believe we need to work in 2 main points. First, capacity building. We didn't discuss it today, but it's a very important issue and topic. We need to take care of this thing. And the point that I insisted on is that the national policies should be aligned with the global principles in order to avoid the internet fragmentation. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Shafiq. Jen, please.
I'm a simple girl with simple wishes and simple priorities. I think I went through and counted very quickly how many NRIs there are, especially for Asia Pacific region. My priorities for 2026, because the local impact is felt the most when you have the space in your local communities to discuss. NRIs in every community, youth initiatives in every community. Just answering the question about the child rights and the concerns there, I think the youth themselves are extremely interested to be able to find ways to co-create solutions. So I think having that space is the most important. Simple priorities, NRIs everywhere.
I really like that. NRIs everywhere, that should be our slogan. Carol, please.
Yes, I will adopt that slogan, NRIs everywhere. But that means that there really is a need for the financial support. It's a lot of voluntary work, and therefore you need some kind of financial support so that resources are made available. And we can also have the NRIs doing their own intercessional work as well. And I think what Jen and other persons hinted on, and I think we kind of missed, is the generational divide. And when you look at the politicians, they're of a certain age, and then you have the youth, and maybe they're running away from what the topic is, even from within their own families. So I think we also probably need to pay attention to the generational divide so that people can be more grounded in the digital realities.
Thank you, Carol. Lise.
Yes, to the question about avoiding all these fragmented events like GDC, like IGF, it's as a multi-stakeholder believer, I think we need to internalize them into IGF and make IGF the heart of it, because otherwise we risk losing this bottom-up, this very broad involvement, both of the global, but also of the local and the regional parts. Because I see many of the things around, for example, the GDC, happened very much here in New York. It didn't happen all in the local communities. My priorities for 2026 is, of course, I would love a permanent IGF, so I'm looking at all the government. Come on, we need a permanent mandate for IGF because IGF is exactly ensuring this local involvement that can feed back to the global part. I think it is important we keep focusing on inclusion. We keep focusing on meaningful connectivity. Back to Henriette's point, it shouldn't be every 3 months you connect 5 minutes. Come on, it needs to be proper connectivity. But we also need to focus on capacity building. That's back to how do we deal with digital issues as society. And all of this needs to be built around data, and it needs to be measured. So if we can measure this, we can also make sure that we are progressing and just not staying where we are. So that's important. Keep measuring and keep making it visible if we have a success, but also if we have a failure. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Henriette, I turn to you.
Isabel, I think we have to be creative and explore local solutions. I mean, and this includes local policy and regulatory solutions, partnership solutions, taxation solutions. It also involves creating technological, I'm looking at Mallory here, solutions that we can own and control, infrastructure that might be disaggregated or separated from the sort of big global internet. So creativity important. But I think as we do that, we also have to recognize that the internet is a global interconnected system. And you cannot change its character entirely by only working locally. And I think, as Jorge said, we've got to work subnationally, nationally, regionally, and globally. On fragmentation, I think it's inevitable, Serene, but I think if we don't know what we want, we're not going to get anywhere. I mean, the OECD is talking about tax. There's a taxation treaty being discussed at the UN. Many countries are actually making bilateral agreements with big tech companies about paying more tax. This is fragmented. That's the nature of the world. But I think if we know what we want and how we use these different spaces, we'll get it. We can't the fragmentation, we have to counter it, but we also have to work with it. The internet covers so many issues, it's impossible to discuss it all in one place. And then I think for the IGF, we need to be honest about ourselves. We need to be honest about the fact that we have many NRIs. Many of them are not necessarily bottom-up, they're organized by governments, and then there are others which don't have any governments participating in them at all. We have to be honest about the fact that developing country governments are not as powerful and influential in the global IGF as developed country governments are. And we have to be courageous, I think, about I mean, this doesn't make this doesn't make the multi-stakeholder obsolete. It just makes it important, more important to grow and improve. So I think we have to be courageous and have difficult conversations. And permanence can go two ways. Permanence can go and create like comfort. What's the word I'm looking for? My English is failing me today. Complacency. Permanence can generate complacency, but permanence can also encourage creativity and courage. I hope it's the latter, and I hope to be around to contribute.
Thank you, Henriette. We are on time, but I think we can have a quick word. Jarno, please.
Thank you. Just I think briefly on divides and resources, especially financing. So I think it's obvious that without adequate infrastructure in place, the potential of this whole digitalization remains locked in. And in this regard, I'm always thinking how to highlight the need to mobilize more private investments and capital to meet these needs. And there, of course, governments like ours, so we can have a certain role there. So our own financing institution, FinFund, has set digital infrastructure and services as a top investment priority, and they are doing it quite well. But there we will always have to be more innovative and try to find new solutions. And for example, now they have just launched a new fund, Digital Impact Access Fund, which will amplify their commitments to mobilizing private investments to the digital economy in developing countries. But I think this is something, it's a process, as I said, so we have to be innovative and try to come up with new ways and means and new instruments, especially when it comes to finances.
Absolutely. Joe.
Thanks so much. I guess all I would add, and I know time is short, is from everything I've learned about what's going on here in this community of the IGF and the surrounding institutions, I would just very much echo the support for, let's keep doing this, because without the kind of input from folks like you, who are focused on the public good and not just focused on making money, what else is going to happen besides just more and more profit-driven momentum? And so it seems to me, though, that one important point is to say that the principles that I'm hearing you all stand up for an open government that serves everybody, for greater connectivity, connectivity amongst the 2 billion people who aren't currently connected, all of this is stuff that ultimately leads to economic growth. And so it seems to me like that maybe is the best argument for why there should be further and continued financial support for the work that's being done here, is that ultimately this is what we've seen. You know, we're here in New York City. This is sort of the heart of the proof point that a free society and an empowered public leads to strong economic growth. So shouldn't the same thing apply in the online world? It seems to me it should. So I just want to thank you all for all the work that you're doing. It seems like an important part of building towards a bright future. So thank you.
Thank you so much for the very inspiring and good words. Thank you all for a great panel. Before you all leave, I just want to quickly invite you to attend the session Bridging Generations for an Inclusive Digital Future, which I think will maybe talk about the generational gap that was quickly mentioned. So maybe we'll get some more answers there. It's in room 1522, thank you. And it will start in about 20 minutes or something like that. But yes, thank you all for coming. Thank you all for this great discussion. And maybe we could take a picture. Panel. Thanks.